Miraki's breath came in ragged gasps as she regained consciousness, the metallic taste of blood sharp on her tongue. Her violet skin was streaked with dirt and dark blue blood, her own. Her pointed ears twitched at unfamiliar sounds, the soft hum of human technology, voices speaking that harsh, guttural language. She had failed. The raid on the human outpost had been a trap. Instinctively, she tested her restraints, biocuffs that responded to her struggles by tightening. The room was sterile white, nothing like the torture chambers depicted in Vexian war propaganda. This confused her more than pain would have. The door slid open with a soft hiss. Miraki tensed, preparing herself for whatever horrors humans inflicted on their captives. Her species, the Vexians, had spent generations being told humans harvested organs from prisoners, conducted experiments on living subjects. Death would be preferable to such indignities. But the man who entered didn't match her expectations. Tall but not imposing, with eyes the color of Vexian sky stones, a deep, thoughtful blue. No visible weapons. His uniform bore insignia she couldn't decipher, but the way other humans deferred to him suggested authority. "You're awake." His voice was surprisingly gentle. He spoke in broken Vexian, the words awkward but understandable. "I am Commander Jason Reeves." Miraki spat toward him, a gesture of ultimate disrespect among her people. "I will tell you nothing, human. Torture me if you must." The man, Jason, didn't react with anger. Instead, his expression shifted to something she couldn't interpret. Was it concern? "No torture," he said, approaching slowly. "You need healing." He reached toward her wounded shoulder. Miraki flinched violently, nearly toppling the medical bed she was secured to. Every muscle in her body coiled tight, anticipating pain. "I won't hurt you," he said, hands raised in what seemed to be a universal gesture of peace. "Your shoulder is dislocated." Miraki hissed through sharp teeth. "Then let me suffer. I don't want human hands on me." "As you wish." He stepped back, then gestured to a tray beside her. "Water. Food. When you're ready." Her violet eyes narrowed with suspicion. "Poisoned." Jason shook his head and, to her shock, took a sip of the water and a small bite of the food, a gesture no Vexian commander would make for a prisoner. "Why am I here? Why not kill me like the others?" She couldn't keep the tremor from her voice. Among her people, showing weakness meant death. She expected the same from humans. There was no killing of others. "Your team was captured. They're in other facilities." He paused, studying her with those unsettling blue eyes. "This isn't a prison, Miraki. It's a research facility. We study communication, culture. We want to understand." The use of her name sent a chill through her. "How do you know me?" "Your insignia. You're 3rd Lieutenant Miraki, 6th Assault Division. Youngest tactical officer in Vexian history." He sat on a stool nearby, maintaining distance. Impressive. Pride flashed through her before she could suppress it. Her achievements had come at terrible cost. Years of abuse disguised as training, sacrificing everything for warrior status. "What do you want from me?" she demanded. "For now, just heal. Rest." He stood to leave. "Tomorrow, perhaps we talk." As he reached the door, Miraki found herself speaking. "Commander." "Jason." The human name felt strange on her tongue. "My people will come for me. They'll burn this place to ash." He turned, his expression not of fear, but something like sadness. "Your people reported you dead, Lieutenant. A hero's death. They're not coming." The door closed behind him, leaving Miraki alone with this devastating information. Her people had abandoned her, just as they abandoned any warrior who failed. In Vexian culture, capture was worse than death. She was now nothing to them. Tears burned her eyes, an emotion she'd been trained to suppress since childhood. In the solitude of this strange place, far from the watchful eyes of her commanders, she allowed herself this one weakness. For the first time since she was a child, Miraki wept. 2 weeks passed in a blur of routine. Each morning, Jason would arrive with food and medical supplies. Each day, Miraki would respond with silence or hostility. Yet something was changing between them, subtle as starlight. "Your wounds are healing well," Jason noted, examining the regenerating tissue on her shoulder from a respectful distance. He had learned not to touch her without permission. "Vexians heal faster than humans," she replied, her voice less harsh than before. Small victories, Jason thought. Today he had brought something new, a data tablet. "I found archives of Vexian literature. I thought you might be homesick." Miraki's eyes widened. The gesture was so unexpected she forgot to maintain her warrior's detachment. Her slender fingers reached for the tablet, hesitated, then took it. Why would you do this? Suspicion colored her voice, but curiosity won out as she activated the screen. Jason shrugged. Because being cut off from your culture is its own kind of torture. The truth of his words hit harder than any interrogation could have. Miraki's throat tightened with emotion she refused to show. That night, her quarters, no longer feeling like a cell, were quiet except for the soft glow of the tablet as she read ancient Vexian poetry for the first time since her conscription as a child. Words of beauty from a culture that had beaten tenderness out of her. A week later, alarms blared through the facility. Miraki startled awake to find the door to her quarters sliding open, unlocked during an emergency protocol. Freedom beckoned. Instead of running, she found herself searching for Jason. The facility was in chaos. A containment breach in one of the laboratories had released an airborne pathogen. She found him coordinating evacuation efforts, his face tense with concern. "Commander," she called. He turned, surprise evident on his face. "Miraki, you should be halfway to the forest by now." "Your people are falling ill," she observed, noticing the human medical team overwhelmed with cases. "Vexians are immune to most human pathogens. I can help." Something shifted in his eyes, respect, perhaps even trust. He nodded. For hours they worked side by side, moving the sick to quarantine, administering treatments. When a young human researcher collapsed, Miraki caught her before she hit the ground, carrying her effortlessly to a medical bed. By nightfall, the crisis was contained, but Miraki noticed Jason's complexion turning ashen. His movements slowed, his breathing labored. "You're infected," she stated, recognizing the symptoms she'd been seeing all day. "I'll be fine," he insisted, then stumbled. Without thinking, Miraki caught him, her arms supporting his weight. The contact didn't make her flinch this time. She guided him to his quarters, ignoring the stares of other humans. Once inside, she helped him to his bed. "Why didn't you run?" he asked, his voice weak. "You had the perfect opportunity." Miraki prepared a compress with the antiviral solution, hesitating before placing it on his forehead. "Perhaps I wanted to see if humans die as disgracefully as we're taught." A faint smile touched his lips, seeing through her deflection. "And the evidence is inconclusive. Try not to die before morning." Her tone was dry, but her touch was gentle as she adjusted the compress. She stayed through the night, monitoring his fever. When nightmares gripped him, he called out names she didn't recognize. Family, perhaps. Lost to the war, like so many on both sides. Near dawn, his fever broke. His eyes opened, focusing on her with surprise. "You're still here," he murmured. Miraki, exhausted from her vigil, simply nodded. She had been studying his face while he slept, the lines at the corners of his eyes, the scar along his jaw. A face she had begun to search for each morning, though she would never admit it. "Why?" he asked. Miraki considered the question. In Vexian culture, showing concern for the weak was forbidden. Yet here she was, caring for an enemy commander. "You gave me books," she said finally, as if that explained everything. Perhaps, in a way, it did. As light filtered through the windows, Miraki felt something unfamiliar taking root inside her. Not weakness, as her people would claim, but something far more dangerous. Understanding. The mountain passage to the observation deck had been Miraki's suggestion. After weeks of confinement indoors, she craved open sky, and Jason had agreed to escort her himself. "Your security protocols are laughable," she commented as they climbed. "I could have escaped 17 different ways by now. Yet you're still here." Jason's breath fogged in the cold mountain air. "Why is that, Lieutenant?" The question hung between them. Miraki had asked herself the same thing many times over the past month. "Perhaps I'm gathering intelligence," she replied, but the excuse sounded hollow even to her own ears. They reached the observation platform as sunset painted the sky in hues of crimson and gold. Below them, the research facility nestled in the valley looked almost peaceful, belying the tension of two species learning to coexist within its walls. "The stars look the same from here as they do from my homeworld," Miraki said softly. "My mother used to say that's why we fight, because we all want the same stars." Jason turned to her, surprise evident. "You've never mentioned your family before." "There is little to tell. My mother died in the Proxima conflict. My father." She hesitated. "He volunteered me for military service when I was 7 cycles." "An honor," he said. "An honor," Jason repeated, his voice carefully neutral. And was it? Miraki's fingers traced the ritual scars on her forearm, marks of her advancement through Vexian ranks. We are taught that sacrifice brings glory. Pain brings strength. She paused. No one mentions what loneliness brings. A low rumble interrupted them, the first warning of a landslide. Before either could react, the observation platform gave way beneath them. They fell together, tumbling down the mountainside until a maintenance tunnel entrance broke their fall. With a sickening crack, the tunnel support beams collapsed behind them, sealing them inside. Pain lanced through Miraki's leg. In the dim emergency lighting, she could see bone protruding through her violet skin. "Don't move," Jason commanded, already tearing strips from his uniform to create a tourniquet. "The tunnel system will give us shelter until rescue comes, but we need to stabilize that break." "I don't need your help," she hissed through clenched teeth, but her body betrayed her as shock set in. "Yes, you do." His voice was firm as his hands moved with practiced efficiency. "And I need yours. My communicator's damaged. We'll have to navigate to an emergency station deeper in the tunnels." Hours passed as they made their way through the labyrinthine passages, Miraki leaning heavily on Jason. The pain was excruciating, but she refused to show weakness. "Tell me something, Commander," she said, desperate for distraction. "Why work at a facility like this? You're clearly military, not a researcher." Jason was quiet for so long she thought he might not answer. "I had a family once," he finally said. "Wife. 2 daughters. They were on Titan Colony when your forces attacked 3 years ago." Miraki felt cold that had nothing to do with the tunnel's temperature. "You lost them." "Yes." His voice was hollow with memory. "I was supposed to be there too, but my deployment was extended. I survived by chance." "And now you should want vengeance," she said quietly. "Why don't you?" "I did, at first." The dim lights cast shadows across his face, highlighting the pain etched there. "I led retaliatory strikes against your outposts. Killed many of your people. It solved nothing. Changed nothing." They reached a small maintenance hub, and Jason helped Miraki sit against the wall before checking the emergency supplies. "So you chose this instead? Studying the enemy?" "Understanding," he corrected, returning with medical supplies. "I chose understanding." As he tended her wound with gentle hands, Miraki studied his face. There was sorrow there, yes, but something else too. Something her people would consider weakness, but that she was beginning to recognize as strength. "I was there," she whispered, the confession tearing from her throat. "At Titan. It was my first combat deployment." His hands stilled. Their eyes met in the dim light. "Did you kill them?" His voice was barely audible. "I don't know," she answered honestly. "I fired on civilian structures. I followed orders. I never saw the faces of those who died." She expected rage, violence, the reactions her own people would have shown. Instead, Jason simply closed his eyes for a moment, then continued bandaging her leg. "Why aren't you angry?" she demanded. "What would it solve?" he asked. "Would my anger bring them back? Would it end this war?" Miraki had no answer. When he finished with her leg, they sat in silence, 2 soldiers from opposite sides of a conflict, trapped together in darkness. "My squad leader told me I would become stronger with each human I killed," Miraki said finally. "But I didn't. I felt less. With each death, I lost something of myself." Jason reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away. When she didn't, his hand closed over hers. His touch was warm, steadying. "That's what war does," he said. "It doesn't make us stronger. It breaks pieces off of us until we're unrecognizable, even to ourselves." Miraki looked down at their joined hands, enemy hands somehow finding connection in darkness. "How do we get those pieces back?" she asked. His thumb traced circles on her skin, sending unfamiliar warmth through her veins. "I think maybe we help each other find them." When rescue finally came 12 hours later, they found the human commander and Vexian lieutenant huddled together against the cold, his arm around her shoulders, her head resting against his chest. Neither seemed to care who was watching anymore. "This is madness, Commander." Dr. Eliza Voss slammed her reports onto the conference table. "The Coalition Command is demanding her transfer to a high-security facility. I've delayed them as long as possible, but—" "She's not a security risk," Jason interrupted, his voice leveled despite the tension radiating through his body. "She's been cooperative, even helpful. The cultural insights she's provided are not why you're keeping her here," Eliza finished, her expression softening. "Jason, I've known you for years. I see how you look at her." He couldn't deny it. In the 2 months since the tunnel incident, something had changed between him and Miraki. Subtle touches. Private conversations that stretched into the night. The way his heart raced when she smiled, a rare and precious thing he'd come to treasure. What I feel is irrelevant, he said finally. No, it's not. Eliza leaned forward. Because whatever's happening between you two is visible to everyone in this facility, including those who lost family to the Vexians. Jason closed his eyes briefly. I know the risks. Do you? Fraternization with a prisoner, an alien prisoner, could end your career. It could make you both targets. She paused. And what about her? Her people would execute her for such connections. The truth of it hit like a physical blow. He'd been selfish, allowing this to develop without considering the consequences for Miraki. In the facility's garden dome, a small concession Jason had arranged to ease Miraki's confinement. The Vexian lieutenant was studying earth plants with fascination. Her violet skin had gained a healthier sheen over the past weeks, and the severe military posture had softened. Resilient despite their fragility, she observed, touching a rose petal with slender fingers. Like humans. Some might say the same about Vexians, Jason replied, approaching from behind. She turned, and the smile that graced her features sent warmth spreading through his chest. No longer did she flinch at his presence. Now she seemed to brighten. Your Dr. Voss disapproves of our arrangement, Miraki said, demonstrating the uncanny hearing her species possessed. She's concerned, Jason admitted, moving closer. With good reason. Miraki's expression grew serious. I've been monitoring your communications channels. The Coalition is sending a transport ship for me, aren't they? Jason didn't bother denying it. 3 days. I've been fighting the Order, but I'm still technically a prisoner of war, she finished. And you've been kind to me. Too kind. The space between them seemed to shrink. Standing among Earth's roses, Miraki appeared both alien and achingly familiar, her features memorized in dreams Jason refused to acknowledge. I don't regret it, he said softly. Her eyes, those luminous violet orbs that had once glared at him with hatred, now held something that made his breath catch. Nor do I, she whispered. Though by Vexian standards, such feelings for an enemy are treason. And what feelings are those? He asked, heart pounding. Instead of answering, Miraki closed the distance between them. Her hand, hesitant but determined, pressed against his chest, feeling his heartbeat. The gesture, he'd learned, was deeply intimate in Vexian culture, a way of connecting to another's life force. Among my people, we're taught that humans are soulless, she said, voice barely audible. But yours beats stronger than any I've known. Jason's hand covered hers, pressing it closer. Miraki. Whatever he meant to say was lost as warning klaxons shattered the moment. The facility's defensive systems had activated. They raced to the command center together, professionalism reasserting itself despite the moment interrupted. On the monitors, they watched a Vexian strike force approaching under stealth, a surgical extraction team. They've come for you, Jason realized, cold dread pooling in his stomach. Impossible, Miraki whispered. I was declared dead. Unless. Her eyes widened with understanding. The tunnel collapse. The rescue team must have transmitted images. Someone recognized me. The implications hit them both simultaneously. This wasn't a rescue mission. It was an assassination. Vexian doctrine was clear. Warriors who allowed themselves to be captured were contaminated, compromised. They had to be eliminated before they could reveal military secrets. Get to the secure bunker, Jason ordered, switching to commander mode. I need to organize defense protocols. No. Miraki's voice was steel. These are my people. I know their tactics, their weaknesses. Miraki, if they see you cooperating with us, then I will be branded traitor, she finished. Perhaps I already am. Their eyes locked in silent communication, an understanding that transcended words. Whatever came next, there would be no going back for either of them. The first explosions rocked the facility 15 minutes later. Vexian strike teams breached the outer defenses with frightening efficiency. Jason led the defense, coordinating security teams while evacuating non-essential personnel. Through the chaos, he lost track of Miraki. Fear gripped him. Had she been captured? Had she rejoined her people? He found his answer in the main laboratory, where 3 Vexian commandos had cornered a group of researchers. As he arrived, he witnessed something no human had likely seen before, a Vexian fighting against her own kind. Miraki moved like liquid grace, her combat training evident in every strike. She positioned herself between the terrified researchers and her former comrades, her voice carrying across the room in harsh Vexian commands. "These are scientists, not soldiers. Stand down." The lead commando snarled. "Lieutenant Miraki, the reports were true. You live, a disgrace to your bloodline." "I've seen the truth of this war," she replied, stance unwavering. "Have you ever questioned why we fight? Why we die? Traitor!" The commandos attacked in perfect unison. What followed was a blur of violence. Jason joined the fight, human and Vexian fighting side by side against the attackers. When a plasma blast aimed at Jason's heart, Miraki threw herself into its path, taking the searing energy across her shoulder. The battle ended with the remaining commandos retreating, but the damage was done. Miraki collapsed into Jason's arms, her blood seeping between his fingers as he desperately tried to stem the flow. "Why?" he demanded, voice breaking as he carried her to the medical bay. "Why would you do that?" Her hand weakly found his face, leaving a smear of blue blood across his cheek. "Because they would have killed you," she whispered. "And I could not bear a universe without you in it." In that moment, as human medical staff fought to save a Vexian warrior who had betrayed everything for him, Jason Reeves understood what devotion truly meant. Not blind loyalty to a cause, but the willingness to risk everything for someone else's survival. As Miraki's eyes fluttered closed, he pressed his forehead to hers in the traditional Vexian gesture of deepest intimacy. "Stay with me," he pleaded. "We've only just begun." Her fingers intertwined with his as consciousness slipped away. "All my life," she murmured, "I was taught love was weakness. But this feels like the strongest I've ever been." "The High Command refuses to recognize your proposal," General Heston said, his weathered face grim in the holographic projection. "They view any Vexian peace overture with extreme suspicion." "With respect, sir, this isn't coming from their leadership. It's a grassroots movement," Jason argued, standing firm before the Coalition Military Council. "Miraki has made contact with other Vexian dissidents, warriors who question the endless war. 6 months had passed since the attack on the research facility. 6 months of healing, planning, and quiet revolution. What had begun as the connection between two individuals had sparked something larger, a fragile network of humans and Vexians working in secret toward peace." "Commander Reeves," a council member interrupted, "your relationship with the Vexian prisoner compromises your objectivity." Jason didn't flinch at the implication. "My relationship with Lieutenant Miraki has given me insight no other human possesses. She risked her life for our personnel. She's continued to risk everything by reaching out to others like her." The transmission ended with no resolution, the council unwilling to commit either way. Political caution, Jason understood, but time was running short. He found Miraki in their quarters, no longer a cell but a home they had created together. She stood before the viewport, silhouetted against the stars, her slender form draped in a blend of human and Vexian clothing that symbolized her existence between worlds. "They said no," she stated without turning. "Not a question. They didn't say anything definitive," Jason corrected, moving to stand beside her. His fingers found hers, intertwining in what had become their natural state. "But we can't wait for them." Miraki turned to face him, her violet eyes holding the determination he'd come to love fiercely. The scar from the plasma blast curved across her shoulder, visible above the neckline of her garment, a permanent reminder of her choice. "The Vexian elders have summoned me," she revealed. KIRX managed to arrange an audience. Jason felt his blood run cold. KIRX was their most secretive contact within Vexian high society, a spiritual leader who had been quietly spreading ideas of peace among the youth. "It's too dangerous," Jason protested. "If they discover your true purpose, they'll execute me for treason," she finished calmly. "I know. But this may be our only chance to address them directly, to make them see there's another path." His hands framed her face, memorizing every detail as if it might be the last time. "I can't lose you." Her lips curved in that smile that still made his heart stutter. "You won't, Jason Reeves. I have too much to live for now." Their kiss held the desperation of uncertain futures, the sweetness of love found against impossible odds. When they parted, both knew what must be done. "I'm going with you," he said, voice brooking no argument. "They'll kill you on sight. Then we'll need a good plan." The Vexian homeworld loomed through the transport's viewport, a swirling mass of indigo oceans and violet landmasses. Miraki, dressed in the formal armor of her rank, felt the weight of her people's history pressing upon her shoulders. "Remember, she told Jason, who was disguised as her prisoner, bound in false restraints. If anything goes wrong, I follow Kirx to the evacuation point, he finished. But nothing will go wrong. His confidence steadied her, as it had countless times before. This human, this enemy she had been taught to hate, had become her strength, her heart, her home. The Great Hall of Elders was an imposing structure of crystalline spires and ancient stone. Miraki walked its hallways with practiced military precision, Jason stumbling behind her as if weakened by captivity. Guards eyed them suspiciously but permitted their passage based on the authentication codes Kirx had provided. Within the inner chamber, 7 elders awaited, the spiritual and military leaders of her species. Their eyes, varying shades of amber and violet, tracked her entrance with predatory focus. Lieutenant Miraki, Chief Elder Vorten intoned, his voice echoing in the cavernous space. Return from death itself. You bring a human before us? She saluted in the traditional manner, fist to chest. A gesture of good faith, honored elders. This human commander possesses valuable intelligence about coalition defenses. And he surrendered this willingly? Elder Vortan's skepticism was palpable. There are methods of persuasion beyond violence, Miraki replied carefully. The questioning continued for hours, a dangerous dance of half-truths and implied meanings. Gradually, Miraki steered the conversation toward the toll of the endless war, the diminishing resources, the generations lost to conflict. With respect, honored elders, she ventured finally, I have seen the enemy up close. They are not the soulless monsters of our teachings. They feel, they grieve, they hope, as we do. A dangerous murmur rippled through the chamber. You speak dangerously close to heresy, Lieutenant, Elder Vorten warned. I speak truth, she countered. This war has consumed 3 generations of our finest warriors. For what? Control of planets neither species can fully inhabit? Pride? Ancient hatred? Enough. Elder Zevra, the military commander, rose from his seat. Your time among humans has polluted your mind, Lieutenant. I suspected as much when reports of your survival reached us. Too late. Miraki realized the trap. This had never been about hearing her testimony, it was a trial. They had summoned her to confirm their suspicions of her betrayal. The human is not your prisoner, Zevra continued, advancing. He's your collaborator. He spat a Vexian word that had no direct translation, but conveyed profound disgust. Our spies have observed you closely since the attack on the research facility. Guards materialized from hidden alcoves, surrounding them. Jason straightened, dropping the pretense of weakness, his eyes seeking hers across the chamber. You deny these accusations? Elder Vortan demanded. Miraki straightened, pride flooding her posture. In that moment, she made her choice, not between species or sides, but for the future she believed in. I deny nothing, she declared, her voice ringing through the hall. I have seen both sides of this conflict. I have witnessed cruelty and compassion in both humans and Vexians. And yes, her gaze met Jason's across the chamber, drawing strength from his steady presence. I have loved a human. I continue to love him. If that is treason, then I stand guilty. Chaos erupted. Guards advanced with weapons drawn. Jason broke free of his false restraints, moving to her side with the synchronicity they had developed in combat training. This wasn't the plan, he muttered, back pressed to hers as they faced the surrounding guards. Plans change, she replied, a smile in her voice despite the dire circumstances. What happened next would later be recorded in both human and Vexian histories as the defiance of elders, how a disgraced Vexian lieutenant and a human commander fought their way free of the sacred chamber, how they were joined by a cadre of young Vexian warriors led by Kirx, how the first true coalition of both species stood together against centuries of hatred. They escaped the planet with their small band of rebels, but not without cost. Jason took a blade meant for Miraki, the wound deep but not fatal due to her swift action. As their stolen ship broke atmosphere, she tended him with gentle hands that no longer hesitated to touch, to comfort, to love. We failed, he said weakly as she applied healing compounds to his injury. No, she corrected, pressing her forehead to his in their private gesture of connection. We proved it's possible. Vexians and humans, fighting side by side for something beyond war. Their small rebellion grew in the months that followed. Other warriors defected, other humans joined. When they hijacked communications networks to broadcast testimonies from both species about the cost of hate and the possibility of peace, millions listened. 1 year from the day they had fled the Vexian homeworld, Miraki and Jason stood together before a different council, a joint assembly of human and Vexian representatives gathered for preliminary peace talks. As they prepared to enter, Jason paused, drawing her into his arms. Against all odds, against the weight of history and prejudice, they had found their way here, to the threshold of a new beginning. When you first reached for me, I flinched, Miraki remembered, tracing the line of his jaw with wondering fingers. And now, he asked, turning to kiss her palm. Now I hold on, she whispered, and never intend to let go. Their kiss was witnessed by representatives of both species, some disapproving, others curious, a few understanding. It was a declaration as powerful as any treaty, a defiance of boundaries both physical and cultural. As they entered the council chambers together, Miraki's hand firmly clasped in Jason's, she realized that what had begun as captivity had transformed into the most profound freedom she had ever known. The freedom to love across boundaries. The freedom to choose peace over war. The freedom to build something new from the ashes of ancient hatred. And in that moment, as representatives from two warring species gathered to hear their testimony, Miraki knew with certainty that their defiance, their love, had already changed.